Thank you all. So here is my paper. Okay, but before I start, I do need to acknowledge that this paper is not really just done by myself. I do have previously have a researcher that did a lot of field work with me. Farah did a lot of field work with me. So we went to the ground to Parit Buntar and also to this Bagatian and Tanjung Piadan to talk to the communities, talk to the NGOs, and also to the government, to the adult actually. We didn't really manage to talk to the local government agencies and also the companies for this aquaculture. One thing is because it doesn't bud. Another thing is it was quite difficult to get them to talk to us. But I think that next slides. How do I navigate this? So the issue of focus for this case study is the ongoing damages that has been done on the mangrove forest in Bagantian and Tanjung Piadang. And then I really wanted to highlight in this case study is the partnership between the local officials, the NGO, especially SAM, Sahabat Alam, and the local political representative, specifically the ADUN, to safeguard the mangrove forest. And how the another focus is really to see how the grassroots community, the local officials specifically, safeguard the environment that is intimately related to their livelihoods. So the research method we started to know about Bagantian and also Tanjung Piandang is really through the issue mapping. During that time, it was the first sites that we visited in 2022, Parit Buntar, where we had all the researchers that came with us. I think it's similar with what we had in Taiping because it was the first one. We want to give the new researchers the exposure and etc. So it was the MP that highlighted the issues about Bagantian, said that maybe you all should go there and have a look at the places there. So we did not really have any FGD there. We thought that it's supposed to be one of those lawatan that you're supposed to have. And the fisher took us on the boat to, along the mangrove forest to look at the damages. I don't think I have the picture here, but if you look at through the boat itself, we would from the boat ride, we wouldn't be able to see the damages done on the mangrove precisely because the tree still along the river bank is still there. But it was behind those trees that the exploitation that has been done that wasn't being shown during our boat ride. So and then we've also been shown about how the mangrove replanting initiatives done by the local fishers. They told us already back then that they have like hundreds of acres of mangrove forests already been cleared for these ponds. So when we saw the way that they replanting the mangrove with all the seedling, I was thinking that is that even enough? I mean, you need so many years to replanting back. So on the one hand, we were a bit worried that how far this initiative going to go, but on the other hand, we were quite amazed that they actually took up the issues by themselves and trying to replant one by one the trees to actually try to revive back the mangrove forest. So then we keep on talking about it. Obviously, it was stay in our mind throughout the whole year. Then when we decided to do the case study, it was quite an immediate decision. We say that, okay, why don't we go back to this local fisher and we did a case study about them. So then we continuously visited the local fisher. We even engaged them for our solution projects to fund them for buying more of these mangrove seedlings to do this replanting. And then from the projects, we get to know about SAM, and then we get to know about YB Hasno, the Adun, and then that's when we got the discussion going on about the issues. So we did the whole case study through the interviews, the focus group discussion, and also through the informal conversations that we had with them when they have that kind of event to do the mangrove replanting thing. So the two objectives here is really to see the localization of the SDG. When we talk about, I think I mentioned this a few times, when we talk about localization of SDG, it's not really just about the local government agency and the district officers, but it is really about the local community. So I think that this case study actually reflect how is it that the localization SDG initiative is coming from the bottom up. And also I think the case study cut across a lot of SDGs, but the most prominent one, at least for me personally, I think SDG 16 and SDG 17 is the most prominent one. So this is Bagantian and Sungai Bagantian and Sungai Tanjung Piadan. We really visited the place that we went to the most really is the Sungai Bagantian, which is on the top, right? Where you can see the home aquaculture. You can see the one that I highlighted in yellow. I hope that it's shown. That is the aquaculture ponds that has already been opened right then. You can see the scale of those of the area that has been the mangrove, supposed to be a mangrove forest that has been open exploited to put these mangrove ponds. And then you can see the 200 acres of land that has been cleared. That was the whole interest about this case study sparked up when they told us about these mangrove ponds, and then they say, you know what, there are already 200 acres of land already been signed off, approved, and already been cleared. So for further building of these ponds. So yeah, that is on the other side of it. From this map, you may seem that it's quite big, but honestly, comparatively with the whole Parit Buntar, I would have to say that this is actually relatively smaller. I think that's something that I do need to acknowledge. So who lives in Bagantian and Tanjung Piadan? So Bagantian and Tanjung Piadan is in Parit Buntar, and Parit Buntar is within the Korean district. So over 35% of the land use is for agriculture, and more than 25% is for paddy field, and 17% land is supposed to be forest. So according to a local development plan for Perak 2014, the state government is focusing on advancing the economic activities on paddy and palm oil production and aquaculture industry. So over here you can already see that fishery, local fishery is really not part of the plan, but instead aquaculture industry is. So aquaculture activities are recorded only around 1% of the land use, despite the fact that we have this such a big stretch of land. So as I said before, it relatively true for Parit Buntar, this land is considered quite small. Hence, most of the community in Parit Buntar are farmers, but either they are paddy or palm oil, and advancing aquaculture industry with the vast forest mangrove that is here is really part of the plan, essentially. Parit Buntar has the highest density of population in the district, and with over 51,000 people, and Bagantian and Tanjung Piadan has the lowest population density in Parit Buntar, and they have also the lowest population growth. So what can I conclude here is that the nelayan darat are possibly the minorities in Bagantian and Tanjung Piadan. So, but I couldn't find any kind of a statistical record of the populations, how big are they or how much percentage that they constitute throughout the Parit Buntar. But through the participant itself, some say that they have about 90 families that is actually the fishery, and some say there is over to 4,000 of them. So because of the contradictory of statements that's given, so I still cannot tell how big is the population for fishers. There are 4 jetties along Sungai Bagantian and Tanjung Piadan. And as I said just now, local development plans have not mentioned about fishery activities in Parit Buntar. These are the people here that the so-called fishers. So the fishers, I think that it is very important that we bear in mind when we talk about fishers. Specifically in this case study, we're not only talking about the men, but also the women. Interestingly, men and women, the activities of fishery is quite different. For men, they do go to the sungai, they catch fish and all. But then for the women, they usually walk by the shore, like the picture shows of these 3 women on the middle one. Right. So what they do is that they collect all of these shellfish to sell. Because of this mangrove deforestation, they actually the river erosion, the land erosion of that river or river erosion actually take up a lot of their shore places, and all of this which means that they cannot really walk. A lot of this riverbank, they cannot walk like the way that they did over there to collect the shellfish anymore. So it actually affects their livelihood in that sense. Over to this side of the picture, that's Mr. Budiman. He is the representative for Jaring, and we would say that the local fishers that actually took us to the places to see the issue lah. And you can see behind him that's the mangrove seedling that he was actually teaching the people how to replant the seedling along the river. I think that the issues of although I keep on stressing it how small the population is, and then how Bagantian and also Tanjung Liana is actually a very small areas. But as we dig further a little bit about the issue, already do some kind of a background studying, we realize that the issues are quite interrelated. So during the issue mapping, we besides the besides Bagantian, we also met with the actual fisher in Kuala Kurau. Kuala Kurau, that was when the fisher actually highlighted about this Pukat Apollo. Pukat Apollo is the one that shows in the picture. So most of them is also from they call it Nelayan Pantai, so zone A nelayan that are supposed to become closer to the shore. So but then this Pukat Apollo is actually trespassing that zone and came into the shore to do the fishing. So you can see from this Apollo, when it catches fish, it catches everything. It will go all the way down to the seabed to take all the fishes. So that will mean that it's not only big fish, small fish, and all the creatures and coral reefs or whatever it is that's going to go together with this Pukat. And it was supposed to be banned, but during the discussion with the fishers, they actually show us the Pukat that they took out from the sea, as evidence saying that there are people using Pukat Apollo. So what would be the implication of the linkages between the Kuala Kurau fishers and also these fishers is that it was actually the SAM representative that show us the linkages. So if you can see, when they took out all of these fishes, big and small, they have this bene, or rather they call it bene ikan, small fishes that we human we don't eat lah. So what they do is that these fishes they're going to sell it as feeds for all this aquaculture industry, for money. So yeah, and therefore you can see he said that therefore there's these vicious cycles between the aquaculture industry and also the illegal fishing in the sea. So I think that there's a very interesting linkages. I just bring you back to this picture. As I told you before, that when we went for this boat ride, the fisher show us the shore of this Paya Bakau. We don't see this clear kind of this view. So it was actually along the line of the river, and you can see the river, the Y shape of that river. You can see those trees are actually still intact. So when we go across the river, you will never be able to see what's on the other side of that land that has been cleared out. So over here, the photo is actually provided by the MP officers with the drone. So then you can actually see how big that area that has been exploited for these prawn ponds. So what are the implications? One of the implications of this pond aquaculture industry is obviously the pollution. So the untreated wastewater from the prawn ponds are actually polluting the river. So you will be wondering, so all the untreated wastewater should go through the treatments before they can be released into the river. Then to make this statement, it was Adun Waini Hasno that actually told the DOE, at least that's what he claimed, to go and take the sample of the water to see whether there's any kind of a pollution when they release the water. And he found that there is actually a pollution. There's very traces of pollution, and it is justified by the JAS. But the JAS says that there is no jurisdiction or to penalize the aquaculture industry for doing this. So he said, yes, that is the loophole there. Why is it in that case? And then another thing is that another thing about aquaculture pond is that they're not going to stay there forever. So that's why you can see that it's such a widespread. So because the ponds requires when they wash the ponds, they need to use chemicals to wash it. So the longer that they do the industry there, the more that the prawns production is going to reduce, because the prawns are very sensitive. So too much chemicals, which means the water become unsuitable and the whole place become unsuitable. Therefore, they need to move around. So that's why they have this clear up all of this land. So you'll be wondering then what happened to the land that they have already moved? So that become tempat yang sudah mati lah. I don't know whether I put it here. They call it the dead land. Dead land means that they cannot do any more replanting. There won't be any more fishes, and they will just be left there. They need to be left there for another 10 years before it can revive back whatever nutrients that is in the water. So in other words, those agricultural industry, they don't own the land, they rent the land from the state government. It belongs to the state government, those lands. So they rent it from the state governments to do this industry. And because it aligns with the, as I showed you just now, the local development plan, therefore the state government actually allows this to happen. Of course, for the fishers, it is really the source of income that has affected both men and women, because the water has been polluted, means that the fish getting less and etc. One of the things that quite unique about this case is that the local fishers have been trying so hard to go to different channels or different people, different parties to trying to raise these issues, until to the point that when we were interviewing them, they can actually tell us this quote by saying that, look, by zoning, there's such a thing as rancangan tempatan, the zoning is under Akta Perancangan Bandar, tertaluk kepada Akta Perancangan Bandar zoning kawasan and etc. All of this, honestly, when we first met them, we didn't even know. But for them to be able to know all of this, they say that we've been trying so many places, we talk to so many people, therefore we know all of this. It shows that we find in a way interesting, but another way is quite sad that despite whatever it is that they do, they're still where they are when we met them. Another point, as I was saying, that it is to highlight the partnerships that is going on between the multi-stakeholders. So the strategies that the local fishers been using is to really talk to the local government agencies, the local councils. Even you see the guy with the purple hat, it was actually from one of the local council representatives, and they sent memorandum to the government agency. And last they have to do the whole replanting themselves, hoping that they can revive the forest. So the one that's squatting down to demonstrate the replanting is actually YB Hasno, and of course Mr. Budiman in front. With APP GM SDG, we try to help in a way that funding them to buy more planting the seedling. So this is one of the events that they sort of invited us to come over to do the replanting and to have that kind of a publicity for themselves. But then you can see that I was talking to those women. That's how I got to know that apparently not all of them are fishers, and there are some of them are actually collecting the shellfish. We talk about how the Aduns, YB has not been trying to also come on board, helping them to raise this issue in the assembly. Quite interestingly, for this particular Adun, he seems to be quite interested with the issue, and he not only raised it in the assembly, but he was also been accused of attacking the aquaculture companies through the social media. So he was during the time that we did our interview, he had this lawsuit that's still going on between him and also the company. That the company sued him for over millions of ringgit for the defamation. I wanted to show you the PDF, the chronology of the protest. That is something that the Adun actually put in together so they can help him to win the lawsuit. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So what SAM or the local NGO helps is to raise awareness not only to the people in Parit Buntar, and they try to do it with also people from Penang or other places. So one of the ways is for them is to engage with the school children, asking them to come over and to replant the mangrove forest. In a way, it gives that kind of awareness, environmental awareness, and also to help the local fishers in terms of the labor of replanting those trees. So at this moment, as we speak, about 200 acres of mangrove forest has already been rented out for aquaculture industry. That is really now the main focus of their protest at the moment. They trying to stop it, but personally, I don't think that that can be done anymore, because being rented out means that the contract has already been signed. So, but I believe with all of these things that are still going on with the ADUN trying to do something, with the local NGO trying to do something, and then with the local officials are trying to do something, this issue is still ongoing at the same time. It really makes us think about the effectiveness of this so-called multi-stakeholders engagement in this localization of the SDG. Not really talking about not possible. I'm just saying that the challenges or the hindrances that we may encounter. Then we wonder that, okay, if we have all of these issues, we kind of already know who would be the one that is responsible. Then we ask the golden questions. Do the government agency actually come and talk to them about to open up this or to exploit this mangrove forest and etc. I think the one thing that we have to keep in mind for the fishers, they don't really care so much about the environmental implications of the deforestation. For them, it's something that's very pragmatic and practical. It's about their income. So because of the pollution, I catch less fish, therefore my income's getting smaller. That's all. It's getting harder and more difficult for them to continue on with their livelihood. Then I say that, well, according to the local kind of a kampong style, is that why not you just come and talk to the kampong people, explain to them that this is going to happen. You know, I mean, with all the places that we have gone to, they have all these very standard kind of a way of doing, is like giving out the handouts. Agree lah, you know. But in this case, it's not even happening. There's no meeting and no engagement or whatsoever between the local government agency or the aquaculture companies with the people. So even the ADUN trying to be the bridge, trying to get the local government agency and the people to meet. But according to them, is that the Pembatanan Pembangunan Pertanian Negeri Perak, SDG, say that the engagement did not happen. They takut there's going to be a pergaduhan. So the CEO actually comes senyap, take a photo, and they went off. So, and he said, why do you use the word pergaduh? Why do you think that there's going to be pergaduhan when you don't even really meet the people from in the first place, and you don't even know the initial kind of a response that they're going to have. So in conclusion, I think that even though it's just, as I start from the very beginning, keep on saying that Bagantian and also Tanjung Piana is very small. People the population for the fishes are very small, but you can see the interrelation of relations of the issues in the local level. But does it mean that because they're minorities, so therefore whatever it is that they need and livelihoods would not be taken into account in any kind of a local development plans? I think we heard that. I mean, still a little bit from all the case study is that we always say that they are just minorities, and therefore the government did not take it seriously. I think this is also the case in this case study lah. And then you have this even a small case study, you have this environmental, economic, and political issue that springs out from here. It demonstrates the importance of effective institutions. You know, the state government owns the land. Therefore, maybe they need to be more aware about the environmental implication of this aquacultural industry. On the one hand, but I think that I have to also have a disclaimer to say that even in the local government plan, they say that it's only 1% of the industry or the aquacultural industry in Parit Buntar. So maybe for them, it's also not significant. I have to say maybe because we never really got the chance to talk to the government, local government. Then the effectiveness of this partnership that includes the grassroots in resolving the issues on the ground. It is very interesting to see, at least for me, the concerted effort between SAM, between the politicians, and between the local government agency. They seems to be coming together to do something of one issue. So I think that's the highlight for this case study. Again, I want to stress that there's no engagement between government agency and also aqua company with the local fishers. I think that's the significant gap that we need to acknowledge and maybe to work on. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hu. That's a detailed presentation. Of course, Parit Buntar was my first visit with FPPM SDG as well, where we got a boat ride to see all this. But after that, I got a boat ride for all my visits. It was a very good start for me. But of course, being there, I got a friend from the village as well. So we really feel for what's happening there. Then when I visit other places such as Kangal and Tebelau and also others, they really feel sorry for them because the minute they disturb mangrove, which means the whole ecosystem is gone for the next 3-4 years. If there is no continuous disturbance, if there is a continuous disturbance, then the ecosystem is gone forever. Because without the smaller fishes, there is no big fishes. Without these ponds and all, there is no small fishes. So it goes on. And then mangrove, once we actually destroy for replanting and for the survival, it will take maybe about 18 months, doctor, for replanting. For a replanted mangrove plant to survive minimum 18 months, but for it to grow and become a producing and also servicing mangrove tree, it takes about 3 to 4 years. So the process is actually very long in terms of, but destroying is very easy. So that's the thing. So without further ado, I wish to welcome Ms. Kiu for your review, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sue and Panir. Dr. Sue, I particularly enjoyed reading and listening to your presentation on this case study of Parit Buntar. It hits a lot of the issues that are close to our hearts in terms of our work when it comes to environmental justice. And I think that's a strong theme, a strong lens through which I see the struggles that are happening, that have been playing out in Parit Buntar. That's one lens to see it through. I want to come back to the lens of SDGs because what was very interesting is how you are looking at, in this case study, localizing SDGs through these minority groups, as opposed to usually we're looking at localizing SDGs through a government authority, which is like a state government or local agency. But here it's they themselves doing SDG related activities and engagements at a local level. And so you're turning that around and saying that this is happening here. So I think that's a fascinating reverse side of the coin, particularly for APPGM, because we work not just bipartisan, but across all stakeholders. So I think this, like, we can work from here, agitating. So interventions originating from government side. Why not? It can also be interventions originating from the side. So it started with the 28,000 ringgit mangrove planting intervention, but I think then I think what would be more interesting is how do we think about, from an APPGM role, interventions at national level and state level? Because there are a lot of institutional weaknesses or pure abuse of power that look like have been happening here. Before I go into those issues, I think like you have identified in your report, the two SDGs, particular ones that stand out, is the SDG 16, and then that's SDG 17. So SDG 16, if I just remind ourselves, SDG 16 is about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, providing access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And when we don't do SDG 16 well, we have gaduh, we have pergaduhan. So I meant you bring up that word tensions, right? So and the tension here, now we go back to the lens of environmental justice. So I think of environmental justice as the equitable distribution of environmental benefits and environmental burdens. So here in the story of Parit Buntar, we have these aquaculture farmers. We have, of course, the Apollo fishing net folks who are enjoying environmental benefits, but then passing the environmental burdens onto another group of people. And so that's an inequitable distribution of these things that's happening at different places, right? One is the mangrove forest, the other one is it in the coastal area, right? That's on the coastal area. So, but these things are playing out and they're causing tension. And this is why I want to get clarification from you. When you refer to the fishers as minority, do you mean, what do you mean minority in what context? Is it like in terms of race, or is it in terms of activity, economic activity, or what?
In terms of economic activities.
Okay. So everyone else is doing other things like paddy fields, palm oil,
Yeah.
agriculture.
Yeah.
And these are local fishers. And local fishers refer to people who are fishing in the river.
Yeah, right.
Okay, right. Okay. So yeah. And I think the like we just chat before we started, I think even if it's a small group, you're leaving no one behind, right? So I think if it's a group, I think it really is worth I think the legitimacy and the veracity of what we are observing is still important. So that's on SDG 16, I think, on looking at from the lens of the institutions. So here, I think the relevant institutions. So a lot of it stems from. Let's talk about the mangrove forests. Sorry, how much time do I have?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Oh, okay. So let's talk about the mangrove forest, right? So if it's gazetted as forest, it's going to be permanent reserve forest. So the question is, what is the legal status of those lands? That's the first question, right? So because you cannot be this or that, there's only one legal status. So it cannot be at the same time permanent reserve forest and then at the same time agricultural land. Just like our Batang Kali, you cannot have a permanent reserve forest and then plant 2 trees. Right? It's illegal, even if it's done by the government. So in this case, if the state government go and let out these lands to agricultural industries, that's an unlawful action. And those tenancy agreements, even if they can sign with all the lawyerly documents, it doesn't grant it lawfulness or legality. So those are susceptible to challenge, and those people are trespassers. And that's a turn on the equitable distribution of benefits. And so now we go back to who's in charge of land governance, because very often environmental governance and the governance of natural resources stem from land use. So land use management here, well, so I think some of the missing stakeholders from here, forestry department, the Pejabat Tanah, and then I think these two are the main ones that I think would be interesting to see. Well, that's the legal status question now, and that would shed some light. But I also suspect that maybe because Sabah Alam Malaysia is involved, and I'm quite confident they would have rigorously explored these things as well. But let's put that aside. I think so. The question is the status of the land and the legitimacy of the use of the land for agriculture, or at least the extent of the use of the. Because you look at it, they've really used it to the max, and they've used it in a parasitical manner, just moving, like a colonial, behavior. So that's very interesting, and the way that they have just done it so that if you're traveling along the river, you don't see it. So they are just doing it in a hiding way, right? So that's telling. That's interesting. So I think the question is at the state level, institutions, that what as far as they're concerned, what's the status of the land and how are they managing or mismanaging it? I don't know whether these agricultural industries are related to whether there's a political economy issue there, but let's stop. That didn't come out, so let's just not talk about that. But the thing is, there are 200 acres of mangrove forests that are being used for agricultural industries, and that's significant, I think. And the other thing I picked up was the assemblyman saying that the pollution, there's a loophole, and you cannot take action for that pollution. So bluntly put, that doesn't make sense. because that's the Environmental Quality Act. So you cannot discharge effluents from these industrial activities straight into waterways. You just cannot. Whether even if you're a state-owned company, you just can't. So DOE should take action. So why are they not able to take action? So that is again, it's a basic legal question. And so that part of the, I think that one is like, well, in terms of what is the issue, I think that one needs a bit more fact finding in identifying what can't they do anything about the pollution. Why doesn't DOE as an institution that has a legal mandate of controlling pollution, why are they not in fiction? That's another question. So another institution, right? So that's here. So now, so that's around briefly around the SDG 16 lens. Now I'll talk about the SDG 17, right? So you talked about how, and here in this case, it's a unique scenario, a wonderful scenario of Sabah Alam Malaysia, a reliable, solid NGO, a very active local community, but there's also jarring, right? A national fishers community. And then there's a local assemblyman who is very supportive of their plight. So you've got the Avengers all there. And then you say, it makes us, to quote what you mentioned just now, it makes us think about like having these multi-stakeholder collaborations, but yet there's no solution. It seems futile. So I think that's, so that is, but from an APPGM perspective, when I look at that, then I think maybe we glass half full, glass half empty. That is a wonderful melting pot of SDG localization magic that we need to support, because there's already people who are there who have educated themselves, who have found as much answers that they can, who've walked those, so they've built those muscles in that sense, muscles for public engagement, right? So how do we leverage on that? Because, right, we say top down, but also we also say bottom up. So here's a very strong that potential for bottom. So I think they will, in terms of like recommendations, we are talking about recommendations, is how can APPGM harness that agitation that's happening on the ground, and make use of that to consider interventions at the state level, national level, right? From those lenses, because at the ground level, nothing seems possible. But then up here, what about these? And that's what, if we're saying at the start, when I say APPGM doing localization of SDG originating from the marginalized groups and working back into parliament, right? To inform national policy and reforms. So I think that's I think that opens up some possibilities in terms of like maybe what we can do in terms of expanding on the SDG 17, where now they collaborate with other actors at different at the high levels. So that's another thing that came out to me. Yeah, I think the institutional problems when it comes to land use, that I think is at the heart of the dysfunction, let's call it, in terms of this that gives rise to this tension among different communities. So, and it's the dysfunction is, you can describe it from in terms of we have state policies about smart growth, about some development, nice policy, right? So, and the national structure plans and things like that. So we need to take this story to go back and critique and say it's not smart enough. It says when you're smart, but then so those are footholds for us to engage, like that's what I'm saying. to explore in terms of bringing it back to them and saying that how then under SDG 16 are you an institution that can respond to these feedback loops in terms of problems, in terms of inequitable distribution of environmental benefits and harms. So yeah, so I think that's it will help with in terms of framing the problem. So framing the problem at the local level, in terms of, so with the local fishers, we cannot tell them come with us to parliament, because like you've mentioned, they're not motivated by environmental issues. They're not motivated about policy reforms. They just want to, they only have bandwidth to care about the livelihood issues, right? So so they don't care so much about that. So in that sense, framing the problem for them is a livelihood problem. But then we have to simultaneously reframe the problem at different levels differently. So I think so different elevations. So elevation appropriate framing of the problem will help us think about this better. Will help us think about solutions better. That's my other point, right? So I think I'll stop here. Maybe I'll stop here. Yeah.
Thank you.